I actually sprained my knee recently in the now infamous Springfield, Ohio, which is now being known for pets that are not being eaten. It's actually my mother's birthplace and my grandmother's birthplace, and I was there for a family reunion a few weeks ago and kept hearing the voice in my head that said, Brooke, everyone, you're gonna need to get a little bit more active. Everyone keeps letting you know you need to be a little more active. So I decided that I would get up and join the kickball team. It was the adults versus the kids. I did pretty good. I kicked the ball. I got to first base. Somewhere between first and second is where it all went wrong. I ended up on the ground face first with my knee on one side of my body, the rest of me kind of going the other way. So I'm going to use this podium and the mic and my notes and stand from here. So,
do you want to sit?
No, it's okay. It's all good. I've been sitting for a minute. So
Okay.
Thank you so much to AJ. Thank you to Mr. Alston, Nancy. I see her in the room as well. One of my partners, Tracy Williams, who also works with the school system and with African American Roundtable, is one of my core partners who invited me to participate today. Yolanda, who you just heard a little while ago, also one of our key partners with the library system. Really appreciate all the work we do. If we don't do it together in community, as far as I'm concerned, it just doesn't get done. So I appreciate, when I first heard about this, actually it was Nancy, my colleague who's walking around the back being real patient with us here, who talked about this movement just a few days before I got the invitation. And love in and of itself is such a powerful thing. And so I'm just gonna take just a few moments. I'm actually, I'm an interfaith minister, and I have a greeting card line, an inspirational greeting card line called Point of Light. And it really is, I created it around the idea that sometimes you have to be that point of light, that stand for love, even in the midst of darkness. It's not always easy to be that one place where there's positivity. Sometimes you're that one person on the job that may be positive. You're that one person that shows up, in the midst of all of this other negativity that may be going on. And so that is what my line is all about. So I'm going to start off with this quote that is from one of my favorite movies, The Peaceful Warrior. And it's, "Those who are the hardest to love are the ones who need it the most." And that resonated so deeply within me when I first heard it, and it still comes to mind when I am dealing with certain situations. So I'm going to share a particular story around that towards the end of my remarks. So love challenges us to look beyond what we see on the outside and make room for something greater to unfold. On the outside, a person or a situation may look a little rough around the edges, but love will enable you to see with a brand new set of eyes what new possibilities are there available. And it begins within. It begins with self-love, because sometimes the person who feels the hardest to love may actually be ourselves. We might be holding on to some harsh judgments, some guilt or some shame about ourselves or our past, what we should have done, what we shouldn't have done. And forgiveness is a powerful place to begin, starting with ourselves and then extending to family, to friends, and to others. And I've been a student of forgiveness for the last 30 years, and it truly does clear the pathway for miracles to unfold. It allows us to be present to the love that is there, the love that is available today, and it really does clear room for new pathways to begin. Forgiveness clears the heart space, and we have to allow that self-love to overflow. So we don't want to just stay in a place of self-love that doesn't extend. It's got to extend to the family, into the community, into humanity. So as situations arise, or as we listen to the news today, sometimes it may feel overwhelming. It may feel like our one little thing that we may or may not do doesn't even make a difference. How can we solve all of these problems? What are the steps that need to be taken? But love begets miracles. And if you meet love halfway, if you set the intention to be love, love will step in and do the rest. It is not a mushy thing. It's not, just the butterflies in the stomach that I heard someone talk about earlier. It is a creative force. Again, it opens the door for new possibilities and allows yourself to be used as an instrument. And when you set the intention for love, love returns back to you, often from a place that you did not expect. Now, this again is really important today because it's a time when it seems like there's so much negativity and violence. There's wars, there's rumors of wars that are happening all around us. But when you commit to being that point of love, that place where the light will shine through, you detach and you let it go. And you step back and you trust that you have done your part and your share, the right thing. And then you allow love, divine love, the creator, God, whatever term you want to use, to have its perfect way. So I'll tell you a quick story. I can be a social media junkie. I love to scroll. I got to be real careful sometimes because it can be a real distraction. I can say I'm going to bed early one night. Next thing I know, it is 2 hours later. I've gone through every post twice of everyone on my feed. I've commented. I've done all kinds of things. It's downright addicting. And many times, if you're not careful, you can get caught up in the negative comments that people are writing. And so a lot of times, sometimes I won't even comment, especially on some of these public reels, because I'm like, you know what? Folks are negative, they're cynical, they're racist, they're just all kinds of things that are happening. So a lot of times I won't even comment on some of the public posts. But recently I decided to step outside of my norm. There was a reel that happened on Facebook, and maybe it was on other social media platforms as well, but there were these homes that were being destroyed. They were literally floating away into the ocean. And it really touched my heart. And I saw that on one of the homes, it looked like, while this home was collapsing into the ocean and floating out to sea, it looked like there were people who were standing on the porch. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I hope these people are okay. And so I decided to comment. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know if they do this, but I just put the comment down. You know what? I hope everyone made it out okay. And I got a couple of likes, but I just kept it moving. And the next thing you know, I get a notification. Well, someone wrote back to me and said, why? They were so stupid to be there. So they got what they deserved. I'm like, something inside me clicked, y'all. I'm going to keep it real. I said, I got time today to respond to this. So I wrote back and just said, you know what? Because I'm a compassionate person. That's why. And one day I may need some grace and mercy. So I like to give some grace and mercy. And I was like, okay, now let's see what he comes back with after this. But before I knew it, other people had begun to comment, and they were responding positively to what I said. And I'm like, okay, so we kind of went back and forth. I found out that the people did make it out safely. That was a wonderful thing. And I looked up again. I came back a couple hours later, and he had taken his whole comment down. So I'm like, okay, love wins the day. So that's just a little way. It's not going to always turn out, but love extended looks like grace and mercy. And I really do use love in a practical way. So one time I used to work with the national office of the NAACP. And when I worked there, every year we had a national convention. Now, my first national convention, when you are on national staff at the NAACP, they work you so hard. I was like, I am never doing this again. Now, I did end up staying there for 8 years. But when I tell you they work you night and day, they work you night and day. So my good girlfriend and I were able to sneak away. We got 3 blocks away. It was in DC. We went to this fabulous bar we heard about. And we were the only 2 African-American women at the bar. The gentleman who was the bartender was a white male, and he seemed to be really friendly with everyone else but us. And so, we were excited, we were giddy, we snuck away, our boss didn't know, and here we are at the bar looking semi-cute to be exhausted. And this waiter who finally approached us did not look happy to see us at all. He wasn't friendly, he was abrasive. I'm thinking, are we really supposed to tip you? Like, what is happening here? And so he took our orders and stepped away. My good girlfriend and I looked at each other. We were like, okay, are we gonna have to say something to him? Are we gonna have to talk to a manager? What are we gonna do here? And then suddenly something came in my spirit and said, give him some grace. And so I said to her, I'm getting that we need to give him some grace. And she kind of looked at me and semi-rolled her eyes, and we were like, okay. So as I watched him, I began to see something else that was going on down in his spirit. He looked like he was upset. There was something else happening. And he ultimately came back to us with the items that we ordered and basically apologized for how things had happened earlier. It had nothing to do with, the fact that we showed up and were the only 2 African-American women who were here at the bar. We accepted his apology. We had a great time, but I was glad that I took the opportunity to listen and use my discernment and extend that grace. I have found that the grace and the mercy that you extend, you may need back just a little bit more quickly than you realize. So that ended up being a great night, but there was another opportunity when I had to extend some grace and mercy, and I didn't think that I would. I was a manager once, and everyone who's been a manager probably has had the experience of having that problematic employee. The one that the other managers all warn you about because they got a bad attitude, you got to look over their work, or it's got to be this, or it's got to be that. It's just going to be that employee that's going to give you a harder time than the rest of your team. So I actually really liked this person, even though their attitude was bad. I don't know if you've ever experienced that where you're like, there's something about her. She continuously is getting on my nerves, but I still really like this person, and I knew a little bit about her story. And so on this one particular day, though, I decided I was going to write her up because it just had gotten to be enough is enough. And sometimes when people know you are kind, they can take advantage of your kindness a little bit. And so I had written up this document that I was going to submit to HR. And I gave it to her first because I wanted to meet with her and talk to her about it. So I wrote the document up, I gave it to her, and she came back to me and she said, I understand you got to do what you have to do, but this is not what happened from my viewpoint. And this is what I feel happened. And so she shared her perspective with me. And even though I didn't agree on all of her points, it gave me the opportunity to see things a little bit differently. And I'm glad that I held off because I started to just take it to HR and call it a day and let the chips fall where they may. But I'm glad that I paused a minute. And so we had our conversation. I told her I would wait. I would not submit the document, that we would continue to work through this situation. Well, I got finished with her and I called because I had just gotten back in town from vacation. And so I called to check what my account balance was at the bank. Now, I'm going to continue to keep it 100 and just tell you that I'm one of these people who, when I go on vacation, I don't always stick to budget. Now, I'm better now. I am much better now. But in those days, we're here to have some fun. We're going to do what we want to do. Oh, what, another excursion? Let's do it. Okay, we're on vacation. Right. Well, my bank account was over $100 in the negative. I was not getting ready to go out to lunch. I needed to figure out how I was going to make it through to my next payday. My lunch was getting ready to be spent at the bank. So I rush over to what I want to say, it might have been Wachovia back in those days. I rush over there, or maybe it was Bank of America, because anyway, hallelujah. Okay, so I get over to the bank. I asked to speak to someone, and I'm like realizing from the call that half of the money, half of the reason why it was in the negative is because there were these bounced check fees. And so I was spending money on vacation, checks were coming in. This is in the days of checks. Checks were coming in, and I don't know about you, but sometimes banks will put a fee and then a fee on the fee, and then you got a fee because of the fee. And I'm like, there's at least $100 in fees here. Like, I need somebody to work with me. So I knew I didn't deserve it, but I went in and had my conversation with this lady. I was like, I don't have anything to lose. And so I had this conversation with this woman who had never met me before. I had never seen her. You know, I've been to the bank a variety of times, had never seen her, but she did something and reversed all of the fees. So I was good to go until my payday. So the grace and mercy that I extended to my staff person came right back to me. Sometimes things don't take a long time to come back to you. Sometimes that karma or those seeds that you planted come right back in your face. So you have to be really careful with what you're doing and set some intention around them. So with that, I'm just going to share a little bit about, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit from the grace and the mercy to the power of love. You know, my mother, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and my mother, who actually passed this spring, my mother was a foster parent. And from the 80s up into 2001, she fostered probably close to 50 children, and I helped her care for these children in our home. Now I moved out in my 20s, but I still was a big support for her. And they started with newborns, teenage moms, pregnant teens, just a variety of ages over the years. And don't get me wrong now, because this was not the Cosby Show. This was not, you know, the Brady Bunch. This was messy. You know, when you choose to give love, when you extend yourself beyond your comfort zone to be a place of love and support, it's not always just beautiful, flowery picture. Sometimes you have to go through some things to get to the other side. But can I tell you that the power of love truly did change the lives of those children? My mother was awarded Foster Parent of the Year by Wayne County government. The kids, when they got to us, they have been through some trauma. If you've seen children, or really anyone who has been through some trauma, you can see it on their countenance. You can feel it in their spirit. And so kids were coming from places where, you know, there's this one child that we had she had a scar on her head, and when I asked her how she got it, she said it was from where her mother had hit her in the head with a Coke bottle. We had a little boy who was 7 years old who was cutting himself. You know, just some very extreme situations that we found ourselves in over the years. And things didn't always work out like we would have wanted them to. I had one, I called her my sister because I did love her. But the reality is she started taking drugs and, you know, began to steal items from our house so she could not complete her time with us. But nevertheless, the overwhelming majority of the children, we would take pictures with them. We would have beautiful Christmases with them, treating them like they were our biological family. You know, if one got it, we all got it. So there were some years where I was buying gifts for 6 children, as well as my brothers and sisters. So the power of love will do amazing things. It can change lives in just a heartbeat. We heard tonight how one young man shared his story of how this coach who was here had no idea he impacted him, but just the hug, just letting him know that he cared, even if it meant being in a headlock, still made the difference. Last but not least, I promised I would share one more story around the quote, "Those who are the hardest to love are the ones who need it the most." I have a friend who lives in New York, and he was very active. He's very active in his faith as well. He's on his spiritual journey, and this one particular night, he was robbed. He was jumped, he was beat up and robbed, and left. I don't want to say left for dead, but they beat him up, they robbed him, and they took his wallet, which had his home address in it. They took his cash, credit cards, I believe a belt, just a variety of things. Now, what he said to me is that the whole time that this was happening, he started praying out loud for the robbers as they were taking his items. He started saying, "I love you, I'm praying for you, I love you, I'm praying for you." I mean, this was just it's taking it to a next level, a deeper level. And so they took his things. Thankfully, he was not, terribly injured, but he was left to heal from that, obviously. But within a week, he told me, the items were returned. Now, they did not bring back the cash, but the items were returned to his home, not by police. He believes one of the robbers actually returned the items to him. So while it may not have impacted everyone, it at least moved on the heart of at least one of the people who was there. And he doesn't know, we don't know the stories of what caused the people to do what they did. And I'm not suggesting you go out and you don't defend yourself, or, that this was an ideal situation. But the reality is, sometimes love is all you have, and you better use it, because it is a powerful force. So he received those items back. I'd like to believe that at least one of those lives were changed. And yes, we may all fall short of being our best selves at times. I got the quick temper, as I mentioned, when I had to check somebody right quick on Facebook in a loving way. But using our discernment, taking that opportunity to set the intention. You don't know you may not know where to begin, but just turn it over and surrender. I am going to set that intention to be that point of light, to be that point for love. And I need love to take it from there. And sometimes I will use affirmation. Catherine Ponder is one of the authors that I have worked with over the years. And so an affirmation is just a short statement that you repeat over and over until it really becomes a part of your consciousness. And you're able to call it up, and you're able to benefit from the energy of it. And so some of the affirmations, and you can say these along with me if you like in your head or however you want to do, but divine love does its perfect work in this situation, in my life, and in all of my affairs. Again, divine love does its perfect work in this situation, in my life, and in all of my affairs. Divine love opens my heart to forgiveness and clears the way for new good to come forth. Again, divine love opens my heart to forgiveness and clears the way for new good to come forth. And then finally, again, this is not my own, but divine love in and through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Again, divine love in and through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, and much love.